Since 2001, there have been 93 wide receivers selected in the first round. Every Jamar Chase, there is a Kadarius Toney, and for every CeeDee Lamb, there is a Jalen Reagor. Will and Peter will break down their consensus top 5 wide receivers. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Without further delay, let's get to discussing these wide receivers.
We're evaluating players, UK perspective, UK approach. This is a doozy because we like wide receivers. It's where all the excitement is in the draft. People want to see weapons. They're a part of the process. So just because you've got a great wide receiving unit doesn't mean that your team is necessarily going to flourish. But if you have a good unit paired up with good offensive line, solid offensive line, and a signal caller at QB, you can do some things. And this is a very deep wide receiver draft. I'm surprised a lot of players are getting contracts, especially older veteran wide receivers, because a team could pretty much go and take someone in the third, maybe in the second, and they'd probably get potentially a 1B type of player even late in the draft. So it's going to be really interesting to sort of go through this. We've each got like our own top 5, but unanimously, like, we've come to like a decision. But I can't wait to get onto it, man. How about you, Pete?
Yeah. I mean, I can't wait to get into it because this wide receiver, like you were saying earlier, but my little addition is that this wide receiving class is very deep in this 2024 NFL draft. I mean, you could have wide receivers from round 1 all the way through to round 3 and round 4, and you could get a really good receiver in round 3 because it's very deep and talented wide receiving class, and we haven't had such a talented wide receivers draft class in a long time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like I said, I'm surprised a lot of guys are like Odell Beckham, for example. He's still exploring options. There's a lot of talk he could be in Miami, but most teams have probably just said, look, Odell Beckham's talented, but we could get someone that can contribute and he's going to be playing in the league minimum. You know what I mean? So that's what they're looking at, and so especially in a draft like this. So yeah, can't wait to get into it.
Number 5.
Me and Pete talked talked about which receivers we sort of thought were good. And to be honest, number 5 is not an easy decision because there's a lot of guys that I think are right there neck and neck. But we'll talk about those guys later. I think we unanimously decided A.D. Mitchell, Texas Longhorns, Hookem. He's coming in at number 5. And Pete, man, what's your thoughts on him as a wideout? As a prospect.
A very good wide receiver prospect. Had a very productive career with the Texas Longhorns in the past year. The fact about A.D. Mitchell is that he actually started with the Georgia Bulldogs in 2021 and 2022 before he transferred to the Texas Longhorns this past season. And that's when he took off. 845 yards, 11 touchdowns. So he does have the productive numbers required to be a successful wide receiver in the NFL. Now he's currently coming as a wide receiver 2, borderline wide receiver 1, and he's very explosive. A.D. Mitchell is very explosive. 11 touchdowns in the red zone for Texas Longhorns illustrates that he has red zone ability to be able to get in the end zone and score some touchdowns. 6'2", 205. He has prototypical wide receiver size. And whichever team is going to get him is going to get a very good prospect, a prospect that can develop and play the game to a high level. He might not come in as an immediate wide receiver 1 for your football team, but he can contribute and has the potential to develop into a wide receiver 1 depending on the circumstances and the team that he finds himself in and how they're going to develop him. What I like about A.D. Mitchell in his game is his speed. He's explosive, run a 4.3 for 40-yard dash, which means that he has a speed to get up to 4 yards in a hurry in an offense, and he can take the ball deep as well. So those are very, very good measurables. It's just he has an explosiveness about him, and he had exceptional ball skills as a receiver as well. So for me, I think there are a number of guys that could have come in at the 5th spot, but I gave the nod to A.D. Mitchell because of his productiveness after moving to the Texas Longhorns for the 2023 season. And he could have easily been an Alabama type receiver. In another draft class, he'd probably be higher up on the list, but I think there's a very good spot for him. And he's expected to go maybe in the background of the first half.
Yeah.
And one of those playoff teams, should they pick AD Mitchell, begin a very, very productive wide receiver year one.
Yeah, it's kind of scary thinking that a team who went deep, potentially deep in the playoffs, is going to get this weapon potentially. I honestly think if he's somehow still available at the start of the second round, you've got to trade up because he's one of those guys that can kind of do everything. He can take the ball deep, he can run it, he can play inside and outside. He's got the size and frame. 203 right now. He can probably play maybe a little bit heavier, but he doesn't need to. And he's 6'2 as well, so he can get tall if he needs to. With that burst of speed means he can come off the line of scrimmage, he can avoid press coverage, and corners are going to be scared to press him because they know with that kind of acceleration, 4.3 speed, it's not necessarily about long speed. People seem to be confused when it comes to short 40 times. What it tells me is that your acceleration at 4.3 is immense. So if you miss on a bump, he's going to be gone. So it's going to make corners back off, which is also going to open things up in the running game as well. So I think any team that's able to get him, pull the trigger. Like I said, it's a very deep draft, and this guy, any other year, would probably be potentially the number 2 receiver, potentially. This year though, he's he's on the outside of the top 5. You know, and even then it's close. So that lets you know just how deep this year is. But yeah, no, Pete, I agree on that 100%. I think with his skill set as well, especially with the way the league is moving and offenses are using playmakers like this, they don't just want pure receivers. They want guys that can receive the ball differently as well. In terms of like my comp for him, I want to probably say, Miami. I don't want to say Tyreek Hill because he's got that kind of playmaking ability with the ball in his hand. I'm not talking about top end speed, separation, production, but I'm talking about like with the ball in his hand. That's kind of like what I see.
I mean, for me, my comp for him is and please, viewers, don't crucify me for this that I'm about to make. This is not him as a player right now, but my comp for him reminds me. For me, he's a little bit of a Devante Adams type. They've got similar body types, although AD is faster than um faster than Devante. But my comp is like Devante coming out of college, not Devante, who's one of the
Coming
top
out
3
Texas
wide
Tech,
receivers
yeah.
in the league that he's developed to. This is like, coming out rookie, sophomore type Devante Adams. This is like Devante Adams with speed,
Yep,
basically.
yep. Straight out of Texas Tech. I'm gonna change my comp. Jalen Waddle. I see him more as a
Really?
Jalen Waddle. Yep, I see more as a Jalen Waddle.
You're gonna have to extend that a little bit.
Yeah, because I think coming out, he's gonna rely on his athleticism and speed, but his route running needs to get polished up, especially against NFL DBs. That's gonna be something he's gonna have to work on.
Number 4.
Now heading into our next guy, number 4. Like I said, it's close. It's very close. In fact, I'd probably say there's a very close gap between 4 and 3. Our fourth guy, me and Pete decided, is Brian Thomas Jr., LSU wide receiver. There are 2 LSU Tigers in this list. I mean, that school is a wide receiver factory at this point. Something special down there in terms of guys they bring in. It's almost turning into like if you're from LSU, working your way through, you're probably going to come out and you're going to be ready to play. Whether you're Chalk, Justin Jefferson, Odell Beckham, like the list goes on and on. Wide receiver factory, and Brian Thomas Jr. and his running partner, which we'll talk about later, is the next guy to come through. I remember watching their pro day. Physicality is there, frame is there, speed is there. His route running is incredibly smooth. He's a lot more wiry, than his running partner in Neighbors. Maybe not in terms of overall athleticism and explosive power, there is that variance there. But I think in terms of like a polished, you bring him into your team and he can start day one. Like it's not a case of him having to like wait. He can contribute day one on that team. As soon as you draft him, he's probably going to be your number two. Unless you, if you don't have a pure one, he's going to be competing for it right there and then. His route running is really smooth, really fast in and out of his breaks. He can high point the ball as well. And if there's one thing you know about LSU receivers is that they know how to attack the ball and they know what to do with it after they catch it as well. Yeah, Pete.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Brian Thomas Jr. He blew the combine up this year. He was one of the stars of the NFL Combine. 6'3", 209 pounds, ran a 4.3, a 4.33 40-yard dash, very fast time. Shows that he has the skills and the two sets, the traits needed to succeed as an NFL wide receiver. I think if you draft this guy, he comes to your team as one of your as a wide receiver one with the upside to really develop into a genuine target. Like you said, smooth route runner, very very shrewd player. He ran a number of interesting routes in college, not the full route tree. But the thing is, his performance and his production at LSU this past season is a bit is very good to an elite level. In any other draft class, Brian Thomas Jr. will be talking about number one wide receiver overall in the draft class. But sadly, he's in the draft class with three other very supremely talented wide receivers, so he gets a fourth ranking from us. Excellent skill set. He is someone that could go anywhere after the top 10 into the back end of the draft. I think he's going to go higher than teams expect him to go because he showed a lot of tremendous promise at the NFL Combine.
And
he's going to be a good, and his pro day as well. He was very, very good on his pro day. The funny thing is that this could be a bit of a bold take because it really surprised me if Brian Thomas ended up having a better career than his running mate at LSU, Malik Nabers. Now, Nabers is an elite wide receiving prospect in his own right, but in the NFL, we all know that sometimes receivers with big bodies end up becoming more productive because the NFL is the one league that the size speed really, really, truly matters as a prospect and as a player as you develop through the league, especially at wide receiver, but also your size is one of the huge factors in how you become successful. I think Brian Thomas remind me of former Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver Martavis Bryant. They have like similar body types. They're both tall, lean, very smooth operator. Except Martavis Bryant had demons that he had to fight, and that's why he hasn't been able to sort of like have a long-term NFL career. But there was a period within the league whereby Martavis Bryant was performing for Pittsburgh, but off the field issues kept him from really achieving his truly elite the elite traits that he showed coming into the NFL. But when I comp him, it's more based on body type. But when you think about his type of game, he resembles a DK Metcalf, although he doesn't have the body type because DK Metcalf is bigger, 6'4", and an inch taller. But if you look at the type of routes that they both run in college, Kells,
worlds apart.
routes,
Worlds apart coming in. I think right now, coming into the league, he's a much more polished route runner. I'd even say like I think that's what's most impressive.
He ran the routes that he ran in college was very similar to the routes that Metcalf ran. Obviously, with LSU, they get better wide receiver coaching to come into the league and perform at an elite level. And I think he can run. He has shown the ability that he can run all the route tree, but you also have to look at the film and see what type of routes that he ran. Mostly, and that's like the go ball, the comebacks, that type of game, and he shows. He has shown an ability to also get contested catches, but he could come in, be a wide receiver one for a team with the upside to develop into a very consistent, high-level NFL receiver. But just like I said, in any other draft class, he could be the number one wide receiver of the rip. And to finalize, like I said, it would have surprised me if he ended up having a better career than his LSU teammate Malik Nabers.
Yeah, my comp is actually slightly different. I'm excited for him because of, like I said, it's very rare you get a guy his size that can move the way he does, in and out of his breaks, and that's what I think's really impressed people. He kind of seems like the next evolution of the position from like a physical standpoint. In terms of usually if you're really really tall, your route running it's not going to be ideal. You're not going to be quick out of your breaks. But he seems to have that already. I'm actually going to compare him to sort of Mike Evans, but maybe a little bit more athletic in that he's going to find a
Yeah,
way
that
to
could
attack
work.
the ball. He can play outside. You can line him up inside on like a few plays, and he's going to be physical because at 6'4" he can easily pile on. He can build it, increase his frame, but he doesn't necessarily have to. He's gonna make he's gonna be really good value if you're able to get him. I mean, it'll be tough, but if you can get him outside of the top 12, which I don't think is likely, because anyone that's looking for a starting receiver right now is gonna have one almost bona fide in this draft if they're picking in that top 10. But if you can get him outside of the top 12, you might have stolen, you might have got a steal. So that's gonna be really good for him, and whatever team is able to acquire him.
Number 3.
It's another LSU Tiger back to back. Like I said, it's a deep draft, and you could have put one of these guys over the other. Malik Neighbors has shot up. I mean, for a lot of people, it's been him and Harrison Jr., and we'll talk about that later. But these guys have been close. Malik Neighbors right now, I think, especially after his pro day, like I said, when you see these receivers in person, and Harrison Jr. didn't have a pro day, remember? So he couldn't let people know what was what. But when you saw these guys in person, all right, GMs were surprised at just how powerful Malik Neighbors was. How fast Neighbors was, because he was explosive. Like, he could get in and out of his breaks. He could accelerate down the field. He has the frame and size to be a powerful runner after the catch. So this isn't just like a wiry guy. He's not necessarily wiry. He's more, some people say he's built more like a running back than he is a wide receiver. And I think his pro day is what helped him sort of push through that cap, because I think for a lot of people he was always number 2 in this draft. But this sort of helped elevate him in line with the competition. So 100%. Like, I think heading forward, I think that whichever team's able to draft him, they're gonna weaponize him 100%. I don't think, a lot of people are saying he doesn't make it out of the top 6, but we'll see. There are teams that have needs, you know what I mean? And this is the attractive pick, but you've got to taper him down. I think in terms of like his main comp, we're talking explosive receiver. I'm gonna go Odell Beckham back in his heyday.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go
yeah,
Odell
yeah.
Beckham back in his New York Giant days in terms of athletic ability, him being explosive. I actually think he's a little bit more powerful as well than Odell Beckham coming out, but perhaps maybe not as established a route runner. But he's definitely going to be someone that can come in and perform for you right off the bat.
Yeah, I could certainly see that. I mean, Malik Neighbors, measured at 6 feet, 200 pounds. I get the Odell Beckham Jr. comp. It's certainly valid. Other people have comped into Justin Jefferson. I don't see that because I think Justin
He's too
Jefferson
physical.
is leaner.
Yeah,
He
way
plays
more
with
physical.
physicalness, toughness, ability to make rack yardage, ability to. I mean, Neighbors has an elite skill set. I mean, in any other draft class, like we said, he could be wide receiver 1 for us. He's wide receiver 3, and mainly because and I'll get onto why he's wide receiver 3 for us in our rankings here. But Neighbors is an excellent wide receiver coming into the NFL. Team is getting the number 1 wide receiver right away. But for me, the reason why he's number 3 for us is because of his ability to get off press coverage. Because majority of the roster he ran in LSU was off the slot. Now, that's not to say he's not going to dominate in the NFL. He will, because Justin Jefferson primarily ran the slot in LSU, and he's turned out to be one of the best wide receivers in the NFL because of his releases, packages, and his ability to get off press. So I think that's something neighbors will have to learn coming into the NFL. How does he beat press man coverage? Because in college he wasn't really the X receiver. And in the NFL, when you're taking a wide receiver that high in the top 10, you want a wide receiver that ability to play the X position. And I believe he can. With the coaching and development in the NFL, he'll be able to do that. But at the moment, I think that's and it's minuscule. It's not a huge major criticism or major disadvantage, but he does struggle at times on press coverage. That's why LSU played mainly in the slot and teams backed off him because and he just uses speed to run by people, uses speed and explosiveness to go in and out of breaks. I like your comment with Odell Beckham. I'll say he's an Odell Beckham with slightly more explosion and toughness. When I say toughness, it means like he's strong. He's able to like withstand tackles. And we'll see if his body will hold up better because if you look at his body type between him and Odell, Odell's more leaner.
Yeah.
He's a bit more built, a bit more muscular.
Would you say a bit more Jamar Chase like?
Yeah, definitely. He's what Jamar Chase like. Although Chase was more explosive, and the difference between Neighbors and Chase is that Chase had the ability to. I don't know what the testing numbers is. But I think Neighbors surprised us with his testing in this on his pro day because I think he had a huge jump. His vertical height number was I think 42 inches, which was not expected.
Yeah.
He had a 38-inch vertical, which is not really expected for someone that's 6 feet. So it was sort of like he really improved on his vertical numbers.
Yeah.
I just want to cross.
I think he's one of those guys.
That a little bit.
I think he's one of those guys that really benefited from his pro day. Like for a lot of people, he was like number 3, number 2. But after the pro day, I think a lot of teams moved him up to their number 1 guy. You know, I know you don't like that, P. I think you have one guy that's head and shoulders above everyone else. But I think his pro day did help, and seeing it up close made a difference.
It did, and there's nothing wrong with that, you know. It did. There's nothing wrong with that. Like I said, he's really good. I mean, I just checked. Jamar Chase jumped 41 inches, and it reflects in their games because Jamar Chase coming out from LSU was able to win contested catch, was able to jump to go get the ball from corners that were perhaps slightly an inch or two taller than he himself. And I think for some teams, Neighbors is number 1 because of the explosiveness that he has off the ball, and maybe they have plans to run him in the offense according to how they want the offense to run for him to be able to play in the slot and still be number 1 wide receiver. I mean, Cooper Kupp proved that you don't have to play on the exclusive on the outside to dominate. You could get majority of your dominance from playing the slot and then occasionally go outside and still be able to make tough catches, contested catches, and all that types of things. So it shows that the NFL is trending towards this new slot wide receiver phenom. He'll fit right in whichever team drafts him. I think in any other draft class, he'll be number 1.
Yeah.
If you also take our top 2 of Neighbors, will probably be number 1. And I do understand why some teams in the NFL have him as number 1. But he's just not number 1 for us, but that still doesn't not make him an elite prospect. He is a fantastic elite prospect. A lot of the off the field chart we've had in this draft circles, a little rumors about him being high maintenance and stuff. But hey, what receiver isn't high maintenance and a diva?
It's gonna happen.
Larry Fitzgerald wasn't.
Yeah, if you want the football, you want the football. Hey, with Larry Fitz, like I said, maybe not in public, but I'm pretty sure at the end of the game, in the locker room, in the offices, he would let people know, listen, man, this isn't on. Like, you got to get me the ball. He didn't do it in public. So, but I don't see how you can be a receiver in the NFL and not feel a certain type of way. If you're not getting the ball, things aren't going your way. But it's how you express it. So, like I said, you'll put up with the talent. You'll put up with any issues because of the amount of talent that you're getting. He's a guy that if you're drafting him in the late side of the top 10, guess what? You've got a guy that's going to come in. I mean, he's 1A. He's a 1A. And if you have another 1A there, which you've got 2 of them right now. So he can really take your offense to the next level. So yeah.
Number 2.
Right, number 2. This one was a hard one. Like I said, between Neighbors and All Paths Lead to Rome. It could have gone either way. Rome Dunze had a really good season with the Washington Huskies this year. And he kind of catapulted up draft boards sort of based on that performance. Remember, he came up against really good teams. Like the big knock against him was that they wanted to see him against NFL like defenses, and they did.
Yeah,
Exactly. They got to see him against the likes of Michigan. They got to see him against the likes of was it Alabama or Georgia they played to win?
I think they played
I
Alabama.
think it was Alabama, and he was able to dominate. So that sort of put like an end to that argument because when you're playing in the Pac-12, people are like, yeah, none of these corners are really going to be in the league anyway. But once he was able to go into play SEC defenses, SEC corners that are probably going to be on NFL training camps this year, and was able to just make them look silly, that tells you that this guy can 100% compete. And I think that elevated him up. 6'3", 212 pounds. Long arm span as well. Like he's someone that can high point the ball. He's got good NFL speed at 4.45. So he's not like a absolute burner like a AD Mitchell over here, but he's got more than enough speed to make it work, especially with that frame as well. He understands the route tree. He can run every route. He can run inside. He can run outside routes. He can run deep. He can run shallow as well. And he's got consistent hands. I don't think people realize how important that is. It's always good to see guys who can catch the ball, even contested catches. I think there's two main things you want to see in a receiver: the ability to separate and get open, and the ability to
Hmm.
catch the football. Those things are paramount, and to be honest, I think they come way before like top end speed or anything like that. Because you can have all the speed in the world, if you can't catch the ball, it won't really matter. And
Yep.
he's been able to do that, and I think that's what teams like. He's someone that can start day one. He's going to come into your camp and he's going to be able to play straight away. There's not going to be a lot of development, hand holding over here. He can run with the ones as soon as he's there. All it's going to be a case of is just him getting to know the scheme. If you're hoping to pick him up outside of the top 12, good luck. You might need to trade up to get him. But seeing as how deep this draft is, you can probably get what you need later on in the rounds anyway. But yeah, no, high hopes for him. Personally, for me, if it's I personally would rate Neighbors ahead. But having talked about this pre-show, I think it's the right decision to put Rome in the position that he's in. Because you can get athletic guys, but in terms of like the whole package, I think Rome's pretty close. Like he can do a bit of everything here, you know. So yeah, take it away, Pete.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Romo Dunze, there's been some comparisons to Larry Fitzgerald, the main man himself. I've been very impressed with him, especially his off the field character in this draft process, how he handled the media, how he handles his interviews have been very, very encouraging and very good to see. Romo Dunze led college football wide receivers with contested catches. Before he comes to the NFL, he's known as Mr. Contest guy. When the ball's in the air and says his direction, it's between him and the corner. Romo Dunze is winning that 9 times out of 10 because of his strong hands and his elite athleticism to a certain degree to be able to do those things. And and if the Vikings end up I mean if the Bears, for instance, end up picking Roma Dunes, that'd be a good shout out. But the thing is that he's not making it out of the top 10. That's a fact. And he's also got very good route running skills, but his ball skills is what sets him apart. For me, between him and Neighbors, his ability to go up there and snatch the ball in the air, in the end zone, the ability to win so many 50-50 contested catches, which is insane. For a wide receiver one at any level within a collegiate program. So Romo Dunze definitely our wide receiver two because of his dominance in the red zone and ability to turn a game very quickly. Because the balls, he had a good quarterback in Michael Penix throwing him the football, but ultimately he had to go and make those plays. And sometimes, hey, Michael Penix had a lot of fuck it, Rome's gonna be there somewhere. And
Yeah,
Romo's always going to be there somewhere.
yeah,
He reminds me of, you know, when quarterbacks are a bit flustered and you throw the ball and you're like he's going to be there, and he will be there
yeah.
if it's in his vicinity. So another very interesting prospect, Roma Dunze, very good. I don't want this to happen, but I'll happily take him on my team if what I want for my team is not available.
Yeah, I think Michael Penix has a lot to say thank you for with regards to Rome, and I think he probably doesn't have. I mean, he plays really good and he wins a lot of games, but I don't think they go as far as they did without Rome and what he was able to do. He was very much the case of like, I can throw this up, just like you said, Pete, and I know that it's 50-50, but my guy's going to get it, you know? And if I had
Yeah,
to make a comp, I'd probably say he reminds me of like like, I'd probably say like of Keenan Allen, you know, in that he's going to fight for that
except
ball, man. He's going to fight for that ball,
absolutely.
but I think
Except
his
I
frame,
think Rome's got a bit of a better size and
yeah,
better speed than Keenan does.
yeah, it's true. I think he's got a little bit more athleticism, but it kind of reminds me of Keenan Allen in that he can run the route tree, and he's gonna beat you with his head first before
Mm.
his body, but he's got the body to do it as well. So if this guy ends up on the right team, he's gonna go places, and exciting right now. All these receivers, not only are they gonna play, like, but they're gonna play and they're gonna play well. There's no real doubts with this top five in terms of if they can hang in the league. Um, the only thing that's gonna stop these guys from producing is if they end up in the wrong system or the coaches don't utilize their skill set. But all these guys are surefire picks, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Number 1.
To our wide receiver one, unanimous between the two of us, despite what the media chatter says. So future Arizona Cardinal Hall of Famer Marvin Harrison Jr. Is our wide receiver one in this wide receiver draft class. Yes, future Arizona Cardinals. Yes, he's gonna be a future Arizona Cardinal, and that's the best fit for Marvin Harrison Jr. Now let's talk about Marvin Harrison Jr. Obviously, his dad is a Hall of Famer, Marvin Harrison Jr. His comp is exactly his dad. He is like his dad with more speed and more size. He is basically Marvin Harrison Jr. with 6'4", 205 pounds in weight. He's exactly like his dad. Two-time unanimous All-American, Fred Billett Cup Award winner this year. I think his numbers would have been even better this year had he had elite quarterback play like Nabis and Brian Thomas had at LSU with the Heisman Trophy winner in Jaden Daniels. His play would have even been better if he had Drake May as his quarterback. He had poor quarterbacks, so his numbers were generally the same as the year before. But I'm talking about it could be even better. Now the thing about Marvin Harrison Jr. is that he's explosive. He's 6'4", 205 pounds. He glides on the football field. He's one of those players whereby he's explosive, but is not aesthetically pleasing, explosive, and sometimes because he's so nuanced in his route running and the ability to use his side and his body control, and for me, that's what puts him just a little bit on the elite level because he has that. And it's almost like when he catches the football, he makes it look effortless. So people think maybe he's not as explosive as the others, but he is. When you watch film, he's never been caught from behind. When you throw the ball in the end zone, he will use his size to dominate cornerbacks. He's fantastic on can run the whole route free, can take a shot intermediate. He's your prototypical X receiver, the one receiver that if all else break loose, he's your get out of jail card. He's your fucking Marvin's gonna be there somewhere. That's Marvin Harrison Jr. I think there's a lot that's been said about him, and for me personally, I just think the whole Malik Neighbors might be better than him. It could be a smoke screen. It could be something to truly believe in Malik Neighbors, but you gotta understand something. Hey, Marvin is taking it all in. Yeah, yes, he didn't participate at the combine. Yes, he didn't do any of the testing drills. But like his dad said, they're preparing to play football, whichever team drafts him. And Arizona Cardinals, and I have a little theory before Will goes, is because Arizona Cardinals called Marvin and told him, look, we're going to take you with the fourth overall pick. You don't need to run for these teams. You don't need to go and hurt yourself in the process. Just sit up, relax, and report to training camp. That's it.
Yeah, no, there's been a lot of talk about that. And like I said, when you have a Hall of Fame dad as your wide receiver coach, he's preparing you for the NFL, and that's a massive advantage because a lot of fathers probably haven't
Mm.
played in the league, let
Yep.
alone they
Yep.
don't understand the level you need to be at. So they're pushing their kids. They're saying, "Yo, train hard." Harrison Jr. was training his son this whole time. He was teaching him
Mm.
route trees. He was teaching him advanced concepts. He's teaching him pro concepts. So it's crazy just to think if you literally took Harrison Jr., just made him a bit taller, bit bigger, you'd literally just have his son, but you wouldn't have a loss in speed, quickness, or any of that. It's almost like he's just
No.
copy pasted and pressed an Excel button on it. Um, Very rarely, I mean, this draft alone, there's very rarely a player where it's like a surefire hit. People are gonna put quarterbacks first because a quarterback can transform your whole team. You've seen what happened with CJ Stroud. He can change the fortune of your whole team. You can draft a
Mhm.
receiver. He can be amazing for you in the season, but it's just it won't necessarily show up on the wins loss column. In this draft, I think there's one surefire player that this is a it doesn't matter what team he goes to. And if he's not productive on a team, this is a case of everyone's looking at the team. They're not looking at the players. That's the
Exactly.
type of
Like
guy he is. Usually receivers are like, oh, he can't do this, he can't do that, he struggles. No, no, no. If he's not successful or is struggling, they are literally, everyone is just looking at the team. They're not looking at the player. He's one of the few players that the term like no weak links really show up. Like he's
exactly.
got weak,
I mean,
like a weakness isn't
I
really a
mean,
weakness with him. It's just, you know what
when
I
it comes
mean?
to scouting players, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So let's cut you off. Greg Cosell, who NFL film guru guy, I mean, he doesn't grade players. He just watches the film and tells you what he sees on film, right? And he's graded draft prospects, including quarterbacks, wide receivers, whatever position you name it, over the years, right? And I have a copy of his scouting report. I saved it up on my Twitter feed. He tweeted it. His scouting report for Marvin Harrison Jr. had 13 listed positives. Weaknesses, none.
Yeah.
He said none.
Yeah.
Right? I know other scouts have highlighted certain areas that they want to see improvement for, but Greg Cosell watched the film and said he has no weakness.
Yeah.
Right? And that's very rare. And right now he's the best player in the draft, and he's not gonna go #1 overall pick because the top 3 picks are gonna go by positional need, which is the quarterbacks that always have a higher value emphasis. But Marvin Harrison Jr., should he make it to the 4th overall pick, is a guaranteed Arizona Cardinal. So I need all the other 3 teams not to mess anything up and not to make it weird because heck, he might
Don't
even
make it
pull an
weird now.
Eli. eh, He might even pull an Eli and say, "I'm not playing for you. I'm going to the Cardinals." So find a way to get me to the Cardinals because that's who I want to play. And the thing is, with the 2 teams whereby he could go to, in my opinion, in this draft class, and he can be the #1 wide receiver and have a Pro Bowl year. And that's Arizona Cardinals with Kyler Murray and the Los Angeles Chargers with Justin Herbert. These are 2 quarterbacks that have proven something in the NFL that they can get their wide receivers to be productive. Now, if he goes to the Bears, Caleb Williams, year 1, as good as he can be, as good as even CJ Stroud, as good as he was, CJ Stroud in year 1 was not top 5 NFL quarterback. Is not gonna get Marv, and Arizona is the best fit for him in this draft. I'm using a bit Cardinals bias here and will you totally agree with me? Because if he goes to the Cardinals or the Chargers, let me put the Chargers in as well. He's the wide receiver 1. He gets the most targets. He goes to the Bears. He's gonna be competing with Keenan Allen and DJ Moore for targets. That's bound to happen. And that might affect his numbers. So go to a team that might not affect his number. And when it comes to purely in terms of talking prospects, he maintained the same production levels despite a downgrade in quarterback play. He had, I think, sorry, excuse me. I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr. had very productive numbers. He had similar numbers back-to-back years in college football. So 1,263 yards and 14 touchdowns last year. And this year, the same 1,211 yards and 14 touchdowns. with a quarterback who's much, much less talented than CJ Stroud. Now, for me, does not sound like
That's
QB proof. You know,
that's
one of
not.
those wide receivers
Yeah.
that, regardless of who's throwing me the football, I'm gonna get my numbers.
Yep. What would you say is his comp? Don't say his
His
dad.
comp, well, his dad's a bit of a cop out, right?
Yeah.
So his comp, for me, Marvin Harrison Jr.'s comp, I would say it's a mixture between two players, right?
Bro,
I can't say.
I've got a guy in my head right
But-
now.
Okay, so for me, he's very smooth with great ability, and I believe he's gonna be an even better AJ Green because of how
Okay,
smooth and
yeah.
effortless
I
it
can
looks.
see.
Like
Yeah.
when AJ Green came out, right, he was taken ahead of Julio Jones, right?
Yep.
But Julio Jones was the more explosive wide receiver.
Yeah.
Yet AJ Green was so
Smooth
good.
with it. Yeah.
Like on paper, you
Just
think
look
he's not
effortless.
explosive,
Just look effortless.
but he's getting it done.
Yeah.
He's running the routes, making the catches, regardless of.
Yeah, those receivers run their routes really
You
smooth,
see?
and my comp is actually DeAndre Hopkins. I actually think
That's a good shout out.
he's probably gonna be. He has the potential. I actually think he's a little bit more athletic than DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah,
But I think in
definitely.
terms of his IQ of football and being able to just catch everything that's thrown at him, I think that's definitely down his ballpark. With the idea of not having weaknesses, if you really look into it, it doesn't necessarily mean that they don't have any flaws. It means that you can't exploit anything. And I think that's
It means that
ultimately
if you do,
what he's
you're
saying.
ultimately nitpicking. Like,
Yeah,
you're
you're
really
ultimately nitpicking, not, and even if you do, he'll sort it out. So if you somehow manage to find something for a quarter that's containing him, heading into the next quarter, it's not gonna work. It's not gonna work anymore. He's that type of player. Remember, it's not just about he has the physical skill set, but he also has the football IQ. He has a pro IQ. He's had a pro NFL IQ whispering in his ear the whole time. And despite what everyone says, like he didn't go to the combine, he didn't go to the to his pro day. He doesn't really need to. I think his dad is like, look, you're going in the top 5. Let's just get you ready to play in the NFL right now. You know, the tape is there. Ultimately, that's all they need to see. Because when players train for the combine, they're training to do circus tricks that they're not really going to do on the field. You know, you're not going to go out in a game and run a gauntlet. You're not going to do like a cone drill in the middle of a game. So why train for it? Players specifically train to get high numbers in athletic tests, but that's not what you're going to be doing on the field. So I think he's just getting ready and he's going to be good to go. So yeah, no, I think unanimously, he is number 1. I think a lot of people are like saying neighbors this, neighbors that. Don't get me wrong, we understand, but Harrison is like a can't miss player. In any other draft, and I think when this draft is all said and done, 5 years from now, he's probably gonna be, unless Caleb becomes the guy for Chicago, Harrison will be the best player in this draft.
Yeah, he probably
When
would
it's
be.
all said and done. In fact, when it's all said and done, I think he might be the best player in this draft. Because even if Caleb is amazing, he's just another guy, you know what I mean? That's gonna be a starting QB, but this Harrison could be in the Hall of Fame, and that's a real thing. That's a real thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And just to round up with the Marvin Harrison thing, I mean, I think it's a bit of a prospect fatigue. The latest also on him is from what I've read in rumor circles that the Cardinals, who are picking 4th overall, is demanding 3 first-round picks to trade the 4th overall pick to a team that wants to come up and get a quarterback, which would technically sound like either give me 3 first-round
No one's
picks,
giving
or I'm
3
just gonna take.
first-round picks. I mean, if a team does do that,
Hey, okay, so as good as Marvin, listen, if I was the Cardinals GM, I'll still tend out 3 first-round picks for Marvin Harrison Jr., right? But our GM probably might not do that. A lot of GMs would take the 3 first-round picks, as good as you are as a prospect.
depends. I mean,
Right.
how long is it? The next 3 years, or are we getting like 2 this year?
No, because
1 next year? Like,
no, you're gonna get. So Minnesota has 11 and 23 this year,
Mm.
and then they'll give you a 2025 first-round pick. But I mean, for me as a Cardinals fan, I'm a passionate player to Monty Austin for this. Even if the Vikings decide, okay, we're gonna pay the price, and give you the 3 first-round picks, go back to them and say, okay, I'll take the 3 first-round picks, plus you give me a second round. You give me 11 and 23 that you have this year to come up to 4, and then you give me a 2025 first and your 2025 second, and I want Jordan Addison on top too. Like, it has to be absolutely insane for me to move from potentially getting a Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that's true. That
player.
is very true.
Like, it has to
that's
be
how you've got to look at it.
it has to, because 3 first-round picks is all right, is good. But if you were to add a 2025 second and Jordan Addison, who has been a good receiver in the league in his rookie year, he had a very good rookie year. That is an insane haul. That I might say, okay, maybe I'll trade you the pick. But if it's not something that blows,
it's
like,
gotta be like a fleece of all fleeces. Like, you've got to take everything. Take everything. And then we'll
it's got to be that, because if it's not, then I'm not doing it. Then you might as well just trade with the Chargers at 5 and come get your quarterback after that, take my wide receiver. Because Harrison changed a lot of things for this offense, and for the first time in Kyler Murray's career, he will have a bona fide wide receiver 1 that he can play with for the next 10 years even. Yes, we had DeAndre Hopkins for a couple of years. It was kind of, I think the D-Hop Arizona tenure was like, this is what Kyler could be if he had a consistent number 1 wide receiver for the rest of his career.
We saw moments where it was like, damn, this is what he's been missing. But it was mainly down to like health issues from both sides. Like, if they never had like a long stretch where they were both healthy and able to play, it was back and forth. So I do see what you mean. But yeah, no, that's that as far as it's concerned. Like, it's been like a really good breakdown and